Welcome to PENSARE Basketball, and today we are going to answer a very pressing question. Are the Toronto Raptors, who are currently on pace for 55 wins, schedule adjusted 57 wins, is this team the real deal? I'm going to lay out a case for and against. We're going to talk about connectivity a lot. We're going to talk about what's going really right for the Toronto Raptors and what's going tremendously wrong, how the Raptors internally can fix this without a trade. Okay. And by the end of this video, after the case that I make, I would like you to comment on this video. Is this real or is this not? So if you're watching this video not live, I would love to hear from you and just kind of get a feel of how the community is feeling, because I woke up today and I said, the Toronto Raptors are number two seed. Number two seed. I have watched the entire internet react to this. I've watched Rachel Nichols. I have watched Chandler Parsons. I have watched Kendrick Perkins, victory lapping. I have watched The Ringer. Shout outs to Rob Mahoney. He actually is somebody who knows what this team is doing. And it's really interesting to cover a team as deeply as we do on this channel and to listen to the rest of the world talk about this team. Because quite frankly, over the last couple of years, I've been watching this team in great detail. And when I listen to Bill Simmons talking about this league, or I listen this team, or I listen to somebody else talk about this team, it's very evident to me that they're not watching. They're reading box scores. They're like, yeah, Scotty Barnes, he's all right. Manuel Quickley, he's overpaid. It's just regurgitating the same points. And the takes, quite frankly, are laughable. They're very surface level. And you can't really blame them, because you're like, why are you not watching the 30-win Toronto Raptors? It's kind of like how most of us talk about the Washington Wizards. What does a casual NBA fan or NBA analyst say about the Washington Wizards? Keyshawn George is nice. Alex Sarr's got some potential, but man, they're bad. You know three things about the team. And for the last few years, frankly, people have known three things about the Toronto Raptors. Scotty Barnes plays for the Toronto Raptors. They're not very good, and they disassembled a championship core to pursue a rebuild that a lot of people think didn't make sense. So now people are scrambling their minds to figure out, how did this all happen? And I can hear all of the individual fan bases, the Yak supporters who very much were for this trade initially, are like, Jakob Poeltl has come in, and look, the Toronto Raptors are amazing with him. They're terrible without him. When he was bad, they were bad. He's good. They're good. Then there are the Sandro heads. I don't know. Is there a name for Sandro Mamakashvili supporters? Let me think of one. Sensible basketball knowers. That's what we will call Sandro Mamakashvili supporters. And then those people are like, no. The starting lineup kind of sucks. It's Sandro and Jamal Shed who come in every single day. Then there are the dickheads, pause, who are saying, you know what the on-off data suggests? This team basically loses every single game if Grady Dick isn't on this roster. Then there are, of course, the Brandon Ingramites, right? They're like, you know what? It's very obvious to anybody watching that Brandon Ingram is the one drawing the double teams, and he's spreading everything out. And he has, oh, this is good. This is good. The Mam Fam. I like this. This is good. This is good. I like this. This is perfect. The Mam Fam. Okay. There's a lot of credit to go around. And it feels kind of funny to watch people competing for it. There's obviously the Scotty Barnes is the best player. And if he was being maligned for being the best player on a bad team, shouldn't he get credit for being the best player on a good team? Because he is doing everything defensively. But then you look at the on-off splits and you're like, there are some pretty good lineups that don't involve Scotty Barnes that are really, really good defensively. What about the Jameson Battle fans? Yes, the Battle fans, the Battle Boys, the Battleites. Battleites? Ingramites? Battleites? Are we creating a new race of people here? The Battleites? Those people who can't just get out of their head how Jameson Battle saved the season and on the road in Cleveland and came off the bench and looked like Klay Thompson. There's a lot of credit to go around. And frankly, we can't even forget about the Emmanuel Quickley guys. The ones who believe that, hey, in a lineup that is so starved of spacing, that is suddenly one of the top half-court offenses in the NBA, shouldn't a somewhat balanced defender who is stretching the court vertically get so much credit for doing what he's doing? And instead of being called this overpaid $32 million player, Shouldn't he be getting credit as one of the better starting point guards in the NBA, given what he's done to fit out, given how he started? I don't know if there's a right answer to this. I really don't. I really don't. I hear it. I hear it from the Shannons of the world who are like, no, 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 no. It's RJ Barrett. Look at his usage, look at his efficiency. I hear from everybody. It's like you hear the fan base is kind of battling on like what is really happening, because again, it's very easy to say, why are the Thunder good? They have a generational defense and they have an MVP candidate. It's a very simple story. It's very easy to say why the Denver Nuggets are good. They have the best player in the world, and they finally supporting him with a good supporting cast, and Jamal Murray is awesome. Every time we stick to or try to give our hypothesis on why a team is good, we point to two things. Or actually, we point to three things. We point to context. We point to team scheme. This is a great shooting team. This is a great defensive team. Or we point to individual talents. What if the Raptors are not good because Brandon Ingram is awesome, or Scotty Barnes is awesome, or Jakob Poeltl is amazing, or Emmanuel Quickley is amazing, or Sandro Mamukelashvili is the best undrafted, minimum free agent signing in Raptors history? What if that isn't the case? What if the Raptors are not good because they're a top 10 offense, which sounds reductive and stupid? What if they're not just good because they play in the watered down East, and they've had a really favorable schedule? What if it's not context, team, or individual? What if it is the connection? I can hear you shuddering. Don't leave the video. I promise it's going to make sense. Give me a W in the chat if you ever played with Connects. Did anyone ever play with Connects growing up, or was I the only weirdo who played with both Lego and Connects? My 90s babies, my 80s babies are definitely going to know about Connects. Those blue pieces, W to Min Young Ching, Mikey Mike, yup. Those blue pieces, green pieces, the little ones, the yellow I believe there were gray pieces, orange pieces. There were like these super long pieces. And you won't believe this. You actually won't believe this. But get enough of these blue pieces and yellow pieces and red pieces and green pieces together, and you can make a dinosaur. You could actually make a skyscraper. I made the Eiffel Tower once in my room, and Mom couldn't believe it. And I never really thought about it. But when you start playing with Connects, you realize that these yellow pieces are really freaking important. They may not look important. They're a little bit weird, but man, are they important. These are the Connects. And the Toronto Raptors have some of the best connective pieces in the NBA. Jakob Poeltl is a connector. Scotty Barnes is a connector. RJ Barrett, in theory, is a connector. Grady Dick is an amazing connector. Jacoby has connective qualities. Jamal Shed has connective qualities. When people say connector, people think Draymond Green. People think Andre Iguodala. People think complementary, and sometimes it can be viewed as almost like, is that an insult? Connectivity, is that an insult? These yellow pieces are worth so much. OG Anunoby is the epitome of connector. Kyle Lowry was the ultimate connector. Give Kyle Lowry a bad team, he's nothing. Give Kyle Lowry a good team, he's everything. Kyle Lowry did something really unique. And when he finally got the pieces in 2014, he was finally able to propel it into winning, which is when he was on a team with Rudy Gay and very little depth, he wasn't really able to connect anything because Rudy Gay is one of those weird pieces that refuses to be connected. When he got pieces that actually were willing to be connected, i.e. Gravis Vasquez, Patrick Patterson, John Salmons, players who have those rigid edges that fit into the Lowry, suddenly everything worked. It's a weird thing, and I don't think I've ever heard this talked about in depth. So I really wanted to talk about this today because I think that the best way to understand the Toronto Raptors is not as individual pieces, but rather as two-piece, three-piece connections. So for instance, you may not think Jakob Poeltl is a great center, and you may not think that Emmanuel Quickley is a great point guard. But Jakob Poeltl plus Emmanuel Quickley plus a shooter, any shooter, really, a good shooter, is a cheat code in the middle of the floor. You may not think Scotty Barnes is amazing, right? Offensively. And you may not think that Grady Dick is amazing offensively. But if you put them together, something really magical happens, especially if there's at least one other shooter on the court, be it Battle, be it Sandro Mamukelashvili. If you've noticed on this channel, we have spent more time than perhaps ever in this channel's history talking about lineup data, which lineups work, which lineups don't. And since I've been obsessing over lineup data, I've started to look at Databallr, which we're going to look at today. And you can sort of see that there's no one individual shining above the rest. Sure, we can say Scotty's the best player, Ingram's the best scorer, Quickly's the best shooter, blah, 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 blah. This stuff doesn't matter. These players are just players. But what Darko has done in the context of what he's been asked to do. See, he's not coaching the team he wants to coach right now. That team is far away. Right now, what he's doing is he's propping up the team that he's been asked to coach. He's putting them in positions to succeed. The mandate has been go win basketball games. For the first time since Darko has been here, this is now the mandate. It's not develop guys at the cost of winning. It's not get Scotty 15 pull-up possessions. It's not get Emmanuel Quickly to finish at the rim at all costs, even though the floater is the better shot in that moment. It's not work on Jakob Poeltl threes from the corner. It's not give Jonathan Mobo and Colin Castleton development reps. No, it's actually play your best guys, but this is your starting unit. And by the way, Mr. Darko Rajakovic, there's a couple of guys that we need to trade on this team, so we can't completely tank their value, even though they don't fit. Work around it. Be a problem solver. And he has been. So let's take a look at what's going on with the Toronto Raptors. Then we'll play around a little bit with that Databallr. Few stats. Okay. The Toronto Raptors, the numbers are weird. They're not a great three-point shooting team in terms of high volume, but they are pretty efficient. Scotty Barnes has been on a bit of a cold streak shooting-wise. We all knew that was going to come. He's been like 27%. His scoring is down. His assists are down. There's some stuff, but his defense is all the way up. I write here, the Toronto Raptors have been out-rebounded by a total of 87 rebounds in their 5 losses. Can you imagine losing the battle by 87 rebounds? You know how badly they got out-rebounded by like 25 in one of those games. They've won the rebounding margin by 48 in their 10 wins. Okay? So you're getting out-rebounded by like 17 per game in your losses, and you're winning by nearly 5 in your wins. It's a big swing. They are 3-5 when they lose the rebounding battle, and they're 7-0 when they win it. Scotty Barnes in wins, 8.8 rebounds. In losses, 5.8. You know what's interesting? Scotty shoots better and more threes in losses than wins. Now, this is clearly, could be small sample stuff, but I don't think it is. I think he has really focused on the defense in the Raptors wins. There's another guy who's very important to the Raptors winning, and is their lone 7-footer, Jakob Poeltl. In the 3 losses with Jak, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 42% from the field, 0.3 blocks, 0.3 steals, 4.3 fouls, and 2 turnovers a game. Did not play well, did not play many minutes. In the 8 wins, 15 points, 8.5 rebounds, 80% from the field, doubled his blocks, nearly tripled his steals, sliced his fouls down, and cut his turnovers down by 50%. He has meant everything to Toronto. Once again, trying to outline the individual is one thing. Trying to outline what Jakob Poeltl going right, i.e. finishing right, screening right, moving right, does to do 2 things. Number one, what he does for Emmanuel Quickly on offense is one thing. What he does for Scotty Barnes on defense is another thing. Now, Toronto, little Vegas, thing here. In the summer, they're over under, according to Vegas, 37.5. Preseason, 39.5. Currently, 55.5. We are moving on up. Way moving on up. But are we on pace for the 55 wins? That might be tougher than it looks. But the Raptors are adapting. They are like an organism, okay? They are constantly adapting. Now, the top 10 defense is gone after last night. It's a 14th ranked defense now. They are 10th in net rating. Very good. How is net rating calculated? It is offensive rating minus defensive rating. So basically, that is your net rating. Net rating doesn't mean a hell of a lot early in the season. You are 15 games in. I would be surprised to see you outside of the top 10 given your record. but your SRS is also 10, which means it adjusts for strength schedule. Yes, you can confidently say so far, 15 games in, the Raptors have played exactly as the 10th best team in the league so far. They are middle of the pack in pace. Something interesting is happening with the NBA this year. The faster you play, the more you lose. That's that's a little bit that's a little bit disingenuous. What I will say is that of the 10 fastest teams in the NBA currently, of the Raptors are 12th. The 10 fastest teams, only 3 have an above 500 record. Of the middle teams, so from 11 to 20, 9 out of 10 have a winning record. So some teams should play fast. Shout outs to Miami Heat. Some teams should not play fast. Shout outs to the Washington Wizards. Some teams are playing at exactly the right pace. Shout outs to the Toronto Raptors. So that's a little bit of data. What else we can look at? We can look at the individual players before we start talking about how they all synergize together. Here are the points per 100 possessions. There are 9 guys who are over 20 points per 100 possessions. It matters. You know, when you look at the per game stuff, you'll see Brandon Ingram, 21 points, Colin Murray-Boyle, 6 points. But what is the rate of their scoring when they're actually on the court? This is about as balanced a scoring roster as I have seen in a very long time. The gap between your top scorer and your third scorer might be one of the smallest gaps in NBA history if this holds up. This is very weird. And it's not constant. Scotty had a major scoring burst in the beginning. He was actually leading the team in scoring. Then there was an Ingram period. Then there's a Barrett period. There might even be at some point a Quickly period. He has been lower in this. But Sandro Mamukelashvili scoring more and Battle scoring at a higher rate. This is not just small sample stuff. This is how the shot distribution is creating these opportunities. Grady and Jakob Poeltl, like the only guys who are really just scoring at an abysmal rate are Jonathan Mobo and Ochai Agbaji, but Ochai Agbaji is largely because he's not making shots, and Jonathan Mobo because he's not taking shots. But other than those two guys, of your top 9 guys to all be above 20 per 100 possessions is pretty rare. And if you want, you can actually take a look at other teams. You will be very, very, very hard pressed to find this type of scoring distribution across other teams. So why is it that the Toronto Raptors are so massively egalitarian? They are relatively also pretty efficient. These are really guys that you can say is like kind of inefficient right now. Ingram, Barnes is floating on the side of inefficiency right now, especially as his three-pointer dips. RJ Barrett has finally climbed above 70% free throw shooting after his 8 for 9 masterclass last night, which is great. Jakob Poeltl is once again climbing up in terms of efficiency, given how he started the season. But overall, this is a pretty egalitarian team. A lot of teams say they're egalitarian, but this team is truly egalitarian. In terms of value of a replacement, sorted from top to bottom, no surprises here. Ochai at the bottom, Scotty at the top. This has pretty much held true all year. Ochai has been bad. Scotty's been amazing. But look at the other guys. Look at Emmanuel Quickly rising up. Look at Barrett. Look at Mamu. Look at Ingram. Like there is a lot of distribution here. And honestly, this kind of, don't take this the wrong way, reminds me a little bit of the Toronto Raptors championship team minus Kawhi, right? You had Siakam, you had Danny Green, you had, Kyle, Fred, Norm, and really like Serge, Mark. Like anyone could have gone out for 20 on any given night. There was a distribution of egalitarianism. And honestly, if you look at the Toronto Raptors championship team, what was that team so full of? Connectors, man. Apart from Kawhi, who is also connective in a sense, everybody was a great connector. Everybody synergized. And I will explain later what I mean by connector. But moving on from here, these are the lineups with Barnes and Barrett. All the lineups with Barnes and Barrett. I have taken the liberty of putting in yellow font, all the ones that are positive. And I just want to go through who is in those lineups and how these lineups are working. So these are, by cleaning the glass, the lineups with Barrett at the 3, Barnes at the 4. For the most part, Barnes ends up being classified as a power forward per cleaning the glass. Even there's a lineup where Jamison Battle is considered the center. Clearly, Barnes is a center, but whatever. It doesn't matter how they do it. Point is, sifted through lineups where Barrett and Barnes are here and just looking at which lineups work and which lineups are kind of negative. You can look at the differential. You can look at the minutes, possessions, the number of possessions the lineup has played. So in the case of the first one, which is the starting lineup, that's Quickly, Ingram, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle. They have played 325 possessions according to Cleaning the Glass. Barnes and Barrett themselves, over all their games so far, have played 729 possessions. Almost half of those possessions have come as part of the starting lineup. And it's resulting in a plus 3.4, right? It's not great, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It used to be bad, but it's better. Remove Pirtle and add Colin Murray-Boyles, and in a much smaller sample size, it goes down to negative 27. That's not good. Then we have 4 positive lineups in a row with very, very limited data, in fairness, because often like Barnes and Barrett don't play lineups outside of the starters. But the lineups that we do have that are positive: Quickly, Ingram, Barrett, Barnes, Mamu. Quickly, Dick, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle. Quickly, Dick, Barrett, Barnes, Mamu, and Shed, Ingram, Barrett, Barnes, Mamu. These lineups have all been more positive than the starting lineup. There's also a Shed, Dick, Barrett, Barnes, Mobo lineup, 15 possessions. That was positive. There's a Shed, Dick, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle. That was technically positive. Shed, Abaji, Barrett, Barnes, Murray. So again, it's, what do you conclude from this? Like, you can take a look at which lineups have a good free throw rate, which lineups have an offensive rebound rate. Honestly, my honest to goodness advice would be wait like till the 21 game mark before we make broad conclusions about this stuff. But right now, I just want to use Databallr for a second here. Pull this off. And shout out to Databallr. Pretty cool. I wasn't using this site for a pretty long time, and then suddenly, someone turned me onto it, and I was like, this is a really fun way to kind of play around with stuff. So if you just click on one player, you can just sort of get their impact, right? You can get their on off, right? So what is the lineup with Yak on the floor, off the floor? You can also combine players. So Yak, Scotty. So Scotty without Yak, Yak and Scotty, both of them off. And then you get the Yak without Scotty. And then you get a full picture in terms of here, like what is their net rating, right? They don't necessarily have a positive one so far, right? Both of them off the floor, really bad. Yak on the floor without Scotty, plus 14. So this is an interesting way to do things. And so if you ever want to just sort of figure out like, okay, Ingram, Barrett, and you can luck adjust defense, 3-point shooting as much as you like. I personally like to go closer to like 40 in terms of luck adjustment, but that's just where I'm at with this. So here, you get an idea of what they're like on the court together. What's the defense like? What's the offense like? And you're going to notice something really weird. You go with Barrett on off the floor is kind of better, right? You go with Ingram on the floor, off the floor. So what does this mean? Does this mean you're better without Ingram and Barrett? What's going on here? What about Mamu? You're definitely not better without Mamu. What about Quickly? Positive. Barnes. Positive with, positive without. Here's the jaw dropper. This guy right here is, weirdly enough, your on-off MVP. How is Grady Dick so insanely positive? His box plus minus is not positive. Why is he positive? There we go. How is this possible? What kind of witchcraft sorcery is this? You can direct your hate mail to Databallr on this, but I think it is because of how Grady connects things. Now we can remove the jaw drop, like, oh my God, Grady is so freaking amazing. And is Jacoby terrible? Jacoby plus Grady. So Grady without Jacoby, Jacoby without Grady. Grady plus Jacoby in 28 minutes is very, very positive. Let's stack another shooter into this. Have they all played together? Oh, they have. 18 minutes. It's very interesting. So, shooters working together to unlock drivers. It's very interesting. Someone said, look at Scotty without RJ. That's good. Scotty plus RJ plus 2.9. Scotty without RJ plus 9.4. RJ without Scotty negative 0.3. This holds up. With both off the court plus 7.2. I guess you should trade both of them. I understand. Small sample size. Rob, can you try to make the most positive lineup? So unfortunately, my version of the most positive lineup has not played a single minute yet. So I'll have to wait for Darko Rajakovic to actually do his job and put my most positive lineup out there. He has not yet played it. Okay. So what does any of this witchcraft and sorcery mean? What am I trying to say here? Well, number one, I'm still trying to answer the question. Are the Raptors on pace for 55 wins? And is this real or not? I do want to do justice to the actual title of this show. To answer this question, I think we have to go into how the Raptors are being successful. Not a super high volume three-point shooting team, not a good rebounding team, not a great defensive team, no top 10 player. If you're very, very high on Scotty Barnes, I think you can go as high as 15, if you're being honest, because of the defense. Offense has been mixed bag. If you're super high on Quickly, you can go as high as top 50. If you're super high on RJ, I think you can go as high as top 100. If you're super high on Brandon Ingram, I think the highest you can go is probably top 40, if you're being honest. So no top 10 player. There's no, single guy on this team who has had a better season to date than Donovan Mitchell. So how is it that you're succeeding? Again, it's those connections. It's Darko being like a freaking lab genius. Okay. What Darko is doing right now is he is playing around with little test tubes and he's putting guys into positions to succeed. So consider the lineup, the starting lineup that I complain about every single day. And if I had a therapist, would probably complain about to my therapist. What does that lineup have in abundance? It has scoring gravity in abundance. And the only way that scoring gravity can be unlocked is if the players are willing to pass to each other and work together to create offense. This reminds me a lot of European basketball, quite frankly. European basketball is very possession by possession based. If there's one big difference between EuroLeague and the NBA, it is that possessions matter much more in the EuroLeague, and coaches are far more detailed. Darko is a very detailed possession by possession coach. The Raptors run a ton of plays, run a ton of actions, but you consider the issue of, well, look at the starting lineup and how it fits. Are all the analysts wrong? No, the analysts are not wrong. Scotty has very little shooting gravity. Barrett has very little shooting gravity, and Jakob has zero shooting gravity. So how do you work around this? Well, you synergize two pieces into shooting gravity, which is to say you connect Ingram and Barrett and potentially connect Emmanuel Quickly and Jakob Poeltl to unlock pockets of space for Barnes, or invert it and you connect Barnes and Ingram and then unlock pockets of space for Barrett. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't matter that any individual player has a particular flaw defensively or offensively. And it's the same way, it's the same approach the Raptors use to defense. If you remember a play yesterday that I brought up where Grady actually does a really good job of stopping his man, and as his man turns his back, Jacoby digs on the basketball. Those two players could not have inverted spaces and done the same thing, which is to say, if Jacoby was the man who was guarding and Grady was the one going for the rip, it would very likely result in a foul because they have different strengths and weaknesses. It would be very similar, for instance, to a particular play where, once again, I believe it was Grady Dick manning up on his guy, and there was a shot blocker behind who was able to recover into the play and block the shot. Again, Grady is not a shot blocker. He's not able to do that. So everybody is sort of able to participate. There was another play where on Tyrese Maxey, RJ Barrett gets the switch. He walls up, holds him off just enough, and Ingram is there in the passing lane. If you flip that, not only does Ingram not have the sturdy base that RJ has, which is to say he's a very different type of defender, RJ does not have the off-ball reactivity and the long arms that Ingram has. So what Darko has done is said, okay, I've been handed a pretty raw deal with this roster, the starting lineup that doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. How can I work these guys together? I have 5 players who are all above average playmakers. I am the only coach in the league that can realistically say that I have this much playmaking talent across the board. Yes, there are teams that are better at playmaking because they have an elite playmaker, but you have 5 very good playmakers, and that has to count for something. Now, coach them in a way that they can be excessively connected offensively and defensively, and suddenly you have, okay, you unlocked a star duo, right? Defensively, you can create good defense with these 2 guys working together on this one side of the court doing this one thing. And I think the Raptors' endless array. So that's one reason I think the Raptors can actually succeed is because I do believe they have an amazing coach. And I have always believed that Darko was an amazing coach. I thought he is fantastically futuristic in terms of his approach to the game, in terms of how he sees the game, in terms of how he's adaptable. I also believe another reason that they can succeed is because they have eased up the pressure. Defensively, initially to start the season, they really wanted to pressure up on the basketball. They wanted to dig into everything. They wanted to send aggressive help, trap, and they realized they don't have the personnel to do it. Quickly can't do it. Barrett can't do it. Uh, Jakob couldn't rotate, and so they gave up on it. I don't believe that this is given up on forever because Colin Murray-Boyles, Elijah Martin, and everyone you just drafted, Chucky Hepburn, were all drafted with this mindset and this play style in mind. I don't think the Raptors have given up on their pressure. I think they realized that in order to play with this type of defense, this team as constructed cannot be the one that employs that defense. But maybe in their minds, they're like, hey, if we keep trying to play these guys in a style that is not something they are willing to do or able to do, then we're going to destroy their value and thereby destroy our chances of trading these guys for the types of players who can play this style. And again, whether you're talking Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Dylan Burks, there's plenty of guys across the league who are built to play the style of defense that Darko wants. However, RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley are not. Jakob Poeltl may not be, especially when he's compromised. Scotty Barnes can also struggle with this style of defense. Frankly, everyone not named Jonathan Mobo is at least 2% ill-fitted for this style of defense. But I do think guys like Elijah Martin, Chucky Hepburn, Jonathan Mobo, Colin Murray-Boyles all fit into this type of defense. Jacoby Walter also fits into this type of defense. So that's telling me for the last 2 drafts, you have done nothing but draft. Jamal Shed fits into this. You have done nothing but draft people to play one way, and now you are playing a different way. You've scaled back what you wanted to do in order to appease the roster that you have. So that shows me another thing, that the Raptors are on pace for 55 wins, because assuming that they get the pieces that they actually want, that type of defense unlocked with this type of offense can actually produce 60 win results. So that's 2. Number 3, the endless adjustments. The Toronto Raptors adjust on the fly probably about as well as any team in the league. That might not be I don't think that's hyperbole either. They're really good at it. They are really good at just mid-game adjustments, mid-season adjustments, lineup adjustments. Darko has been really snappy. If something's not working, he doesn't go to it in the second half. It's like if this player isn't holding up their own that game, that player is going to sit. Their stint is going to be short. He has been extremely mad science-y with his lineups, and I think that adjustment and ability to kind of go away from it is the exact opposite of Dwayne Casey, right? So that is a really, really good thing. The other thing that I think is going to work in your favor in terms of sustaining this pace is I don't think your individual players have played all that well, and I think they will at some point. It's impossible for me to imagine that Scotty Barnes is going to be this as unassertive and undialed in offensively as he's been for the first part of this season. I know a lot of people are like, wow, but what about Cleveland? But what about this game? What about the 231-point games? I get all of that, but his average game so far has not been impressive offensively. What it has been is really good defensively. And I think he's honing in so much of his effort on the defensive end because he just wants to win basketball games. However, at some point, you will have to get some defensive help around him, at which point maybe we can try a little bit more of the offensive stuff. But at this point, you can't ask him to carry both your offense and your defense. So it's probably a great thing for him that he has so many players on his team that can play off of him defensively and help him now, but also that he has players that can help him so much offensively and maybe even shoulder the load a little bit on a night where he doesn't feel like his touch is going in or his shot's not going in or whatever. I still think he's the best player on this team. Honestly, I watched that Minnesota team with Sam Cassell and Latrell Sprewell on and on. And if you didn't know who these players were, sometimes you'd walk in and think Latrell Sprewell was their best player. But honestly, it was always Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett was always their best player. Even when he wasn't their top scorer, he was always their best player. So, it's just like with the Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Spurs, right? Like Tim Duncan didn't win all the finals MVPs. Tony Parker got a finals MVP. Kawhi got a finals MVP. Tim was always the backbone of that team. I don't think we're used to seeing a small forward play like a center or a point guard. Do you know what I mean? Like Steve Nash wasn't the highest scorer. Magic Johnson wasn't the highest scorer. We have a really difficult time trying to squeeze in, like, what is Scottie Barnes really? The best way to understand it is Scottie Pippen on the Portland Trailblazers. He was their best player, was never their top scorer, or rarely their top scorer. Jason Kidd's another way to understand it. But again, you understand it better with Jason Kidd because he's a point guard and you kind of associate like the high assist numbers with him driving offense. With Scottie, it's really hard to see how his connective passing and his screen setting and all that stuff is driving offense. But he is really he is that piece. This piece right here, this yellow piece, this yellow connector, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this thing that connects the coach to all four players, this mega connective piece, because there are smaller connective pieces too, that only connect two things. This golden nugget of a piece, which is the half connection piece, this is basically Scottie Barnes. Or if you want to get fully crazy, the white full connection piece that connects like 7 or 8 pieces. That is basically Scottie Barnes in a nutshell, because he's able to implement everything, and he's able to play a different style. So, whether you play slower offense, faster offense, Scottie is able to blend and shift. And, some nights he's able to guard a center, some nights he's able to guard a power forward. I don't think his versatility is ever taken into account, because people are like, well, whatever, you're just one person in that one place. But the ability to be in any other place on the court and still not be a liability, this is what makes OG so special. This is what made Tomani Kamara or Dyson Daniels so special. This is what makes Bam Adebayo so special. These kind of blending in, like I can play center, I can play point guard, I can play small forward, I can set the screen, I can invert the screen, I can handle the ball screen. This well-roundedness is not properly appreciated by most people. It's actually much more appreciated if you just have one superpower. Like, I'm a great shooter, I'm a great ball handler, I'm a great pull-up jump shooter, I'm a great dunker, like Shaedon Sharpe. You ask a casual fan, who's better, Scottie Barnes or Shaedon Sharpe? I think a lot of people would say Shaedon Sharpe because he's a great dunker. What is Scottie great at? But the thing is, Scottie's great at defense, number one. Scottie's a great passer, number two. And number three, he's not bad at anything. And that thing, the being not bad at things, allows you to be like this incredible connector. Now, I understand some people view this as a disparaging comment on Scottie. This is not a finished product. This is Scottie 2.0. You'll get 8.0, 9.0, 10.0 like 2-3 years from now, and you'll be like, wow, I didn't know he had a 30-point per game scorer run in him. This is the Kawhi special, the Giannis special, that even before these guys are able, even the Tatum thing, like Tatum in his second season, like before these guys are able to ascend to like 25, 28 point per game, 30 point per game scorers, they're still able to provide so much value because of their physical tools and well-roundedness. So I think another reason that the Raptors will be able to sustain this is because I think Scottie is addicted to winning. And I think that Scottie is the type of floor-raising impact player, if not the floor-raising superstar, like a, Devin Booker or a Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's not quite that level of player, but offensively, as a sum total impact player, I do think he has that level. Ingram. The other reason I think that they may be able to sustain this pace is Ingram. I think Brandon Ingram is getting bouncier, more connected, more familiar with the system, more trusting of his teammates. So I think that that's going to help a lot. The other reason that I think they can sustain this is partially because they are a young team. And I do believe that young teams hold up better over a long season than old teams, because you're able to sort of avoid the injuries that come with the inevitability of age. You are a younger team, touch wood. You don't play heavy minutes. That's another reason I think they can sustain this, because what they are doing, playing their starters like 31, 32, 33 minutes a night, this is the epitome of sustainability to me, right? Like, I don't know why I just added an accent on epitome. This is the epitome of sustainability, because what you were doing with Nick Nurse was you were burning guys into the ground 40 minutes a night, 42 minutes a night, 43 minutes a night. Fred VanVleet, 43 minutes. Oh, hamstring strain. Pascal Siakam, 40 minutes a night. Everything to win. Well, here you're not doing that. You're developing your bench. You're playing guys egalitarian lineups. You're getting guys breaks on back-to-backs. You're not running guys into the ground. I think that that is a good recipe for sustainability. The other thing that helps me believe that the Raptors are on pace for a 55 win season or potentially something close to a 55 win season is the rest of the Eastern Conference. Nobody is really emerging as a threat. I believe this team sees itself as potentially able to climb these standings. And while when you get to the playoffs, it's anyone's bet, you might hit a more experienced team. Maybe you get I don't know, maybe you get freaking Indiana and Tyrese Halliburton comes back early. That's very doubtful. Maybe you get Miami in the first round. Maybe you get Cleveland because they fall down the standings without Darius Garland. Darius Garland's back tomorrow. Maybe you get Orlando because they haven't figured out their shit and they suddenly figure it out right in the last week of the season. A lot of things can happen, but I do believe that the Raptors should try to climb as high as they possibly can. So these are all reasons why I think it can work. You have a lot of talent. Your talent is very blendable. Your pieces do, because of your coach and your connectors and your excess of connectors on your team, you do have this wonderful ability to sort of mishmash players. I also think, once again, that one of the things that genuinely helps you is that you have guys who are really, really bought into winning. You don't have a lot of character distractions. Like there's not a lot of mercurial personalities on your team where there's that wild card guy who might just go off on social media and blast his whole team. There's that cancerous, talk locker room presence who might just snap on one of his teammates and go on one of those disgruntled streaks where he screws up team chemistry. You've actually invested in a lot of good guys, and those guys tend to be a lot more stable and dependable. So those are the reasons I think it could be real. Why might it not be real? Well, the aforementioned lack of top 10 player. That's one. Number two, if you look at the individual talents, regardless of how they have synergized, I believe that there's maybe 1.5 to 2 positive defenders in the starting lineup, and maybe 1.5 positive defenders coming off the bench that actually play between Colin Murray-Boyles and Jacoby Walter. Grady is still a defensive liability. Emmanuel Quickley is nothing to write home about. RJ is still a defensive liability. Ingram is also nothing to write home about. Mamu gives up a lot on the boards. There's a lot of individual concerns. Now you paper over it because Colin Murray-Boyles is a great connector defensively. Scotty is a great connector defensively. Jacoby, who plays a lot despite his offensive struggles, is a great connector defensively. Yak is a great connector defensively. So all these guys are collectively papering it over. Again, when I listen to people talk about this team, they're like, no, Scotty Barnes is single-handedly saving the defense. I myself might be accused of saying that. That's lazy analysis. That's not true. Scotty Barnes is not single-handedly saving the defense. He's doing a lot. He might be doing 55% of the work by himself, which feels single-handedly. But Colin Murray-Boyles, Jakob Poeltl, Jacoby Walter, and frankly, Brandon Ingram at times as well deserve a ton of credit. Grady deserves a bit of credit for what he's done over the last few games as well. Sandro is, he's not bad. He's okay. Jamal Shed deserves a lot of credit for his pressure and picking up 94 feet. So they're working together. But there is still a lack of individual plus defenders. And so I worry sometimes when you get into more isolation heavy, I dissect you type of thing, might this be something that gets schemed out in the playoffs where teams are just able to attack Barrett quickly, Ingram, Barrett quickly, Ingram, manipulate the court to get Scotty away from the action, and then just attack those two. Now, again, easier said than done. But when you have the full time to prepare for a team, you're better able to dissect their strengths and weaknesses. And I think everybody in the league knows that RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley in a ball screen is going to be nightmare for the defense. And you're going to get open shots out of that. There's also the small sample size bias. The Raptors have had a crazy amount of injury luck on both ends. Number one, their top 4 players, actually 3 of their top 5 players, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, have played every single game so far. And very often you are going up against teams that are missing at least one max player. Against Philly, the one time, that you got beat, they were still missing Paul George. Granted, Paul George is playing right now. He's not a mega impact player, but they were missing guys even that night when they beat you. The second night when you beat them, they were missing like $100 million of salary off their books. Like they were missing so many guys. So you beat Memphis without Ja. You beat this guy. You beat this team without this guy. You beat Indiana without Ben Mathurin, without, Tyrese Halliburton. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing, right? So you look at it from that perspective and you're like, a little bit of fool's gold happening here, maybe. The other reason that I think this may not work out or may at some point kind of sort itself out is, how shall I put this? There are some looming contract concerns around the trade deadline that could become distractions for guys who are otherwise pretty stable. Which is to say, RJ Barrett's a good guy. Emmanuel Quickly's his best friend on the team, etc. Ochai Abaji's a good dude. All these guys are good dudes. But once the trade rumors start to heat up, does that create division within your organization? Does that become a distraction as well? I think that's part of it. Then there is another reason that I think this may not work out, which is you haven't really been tested yet, and all of this just could be a fluke. There's a lot of teams that start out really, really well because the Raptors' offense is relatively complicated because it is relatively random. But there are tendencies that are emerging, and as more data comes out, I think teams will be able to scheme out some of your pet actions. And I think I'm most curious to see after January 1st, once you've kind of played the entire league once, how do teams adjust on the second time they face you? Because the Raptors are very shapeshifty. Sometimes they put Barnes at the 5, then they put Mamu at the 5, and then they'll sub them both out and then put Yak at the 5. Do you know how fundamentally different those three players are? And the other team is not like there's basketball is a game of rhythm. You know what I mean? Like you get used to a certain rhythm of what it's like to play with Sandro at the 5. Okay, the big can't go down. Okay, he has to switch out. We have to X out. Okay, blah blah blah. Blah. But then suddenly Darko is just like 3 minutes later, Jakob is in, and your entire defensive philosophy has to change. The diversity of these players is very unique and very novel, but are you maybe catching teams with their pants off a little bit here because these lineups have never played together? And you're not actually, like, if you look at some of the lineups that I showed you, like some of these lineups have like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Scotty, RJ, and Jakob without Quickly have a total data set of 10 minutes. What are you even watching to see how those lineups work? And what I like about this team more than anything is all these lineups kind of play differently. Have you noticed that? The Raptors with Sandro Mamukelashvili are a fundamentally different team. Like, if you think about how the starting lineup plays and then how the second unit plays, you look at like how different those teams are defensively and offensively. It's actually quite weird. I mean, they're always unselfish and they're always trying to move for each other. So that's good. So that's kind of like I hope a pretty detailed analysis of like why I think this team will and why I think this team won't. I won't totally taint your opinion because I genuinely want to hear what you have to say based on everything you've heard here, but also perhaps stuff you've thought about yourself. Is this team legit? Is this legit? And how legit? Is it 50 wins legit? Is it 55 wins legit? Is it conference finals legit? Is it first round exit legit? Is it 46 wins, 42 wins? Currently, Vegas has the over under 45. Is it 40 wins? Are we about to fall off a cliff here? How do we respond to that? So I want to hear that, but I will not rob you of my own opinion here. I think this team will win. Now, I made a video in the offseason saying this will be a 50-plus win team, and they're ahead of my expectations. So I should be higher than 50 wins, right? Like that would just be stupid, right? Like I should be higher than 50 wins. So anything less than 50 wins would be illogical. But I'm actually rounding out to about 48 wins, to be honest. That's how I feel. I feel like this team's going to be around 48 wins. That's where I'm at right now, 47 to 48. I feel like they're going to achieve the same record that the 07 Raptors, the 2014 Raptors, that 47 to 48 golden mark, second or first in the Atlantic Division based on how the Knicks do. I think the rest of the Eastern Conference teams are going to get a little bit healthier. We're going to start to see stiffer competition. We're going to face better teams. We've had some really good injury luck. We might not have the greatest injury luck. At B101 said, this is fool's gold. I don't think it's fool's gold. I thought this team was 40 plus wins last year. So with Mamu and Ingram, this checks out. I think Mamu and Ingram should move the needle by 6 wins. So 46, 47 wins with a little bit of luck on your side can easily become 51, can easily become 42. That's the range. 42 to 52 is the range. 47 sits smack dab in the middle of that range. My opinion is this will be a 47 to 48 win team with a chance to get out of the first round, but very little chance to get past that. That's where I'm at. Pepperjack, the always generous Pepperjack. If the Raptors play 500 basketball the rest of the way, we win 44. I think that is the floor for this team. That's interesting. That is true. Mathematically, that is true. I think playing 500 basketball would be great. We can play a little bit better than 500 basketball. There's a lot of bad teams in the East. There's also going to be a lot of teams that are deliberately resting guys and trying to lose games at the back end of the season, where you yourself, by the way, will be able to rest up, get healthy. So if you are to sustain any injuries, pray to God, let it be at that point of the season, right? When other teams are all, if you're going to sustain a 10-game absence of Scotty Barnes right now, your defense is going to be in a lot of trouble, right? Because the only player that can really replace him is Colin Murray-Boyles, and he cannot replicate his production. If we already saw what happened without Jakob Poeltl, we got destroyed. Let's just be real. We got destroyed. Okay. So there are like a couple of guys. I mean, I think of the starters, you can go without quickly, but it won't be good because, unless you're expecting Chucky Hepburn to come off the bench or Scotty to play point guard off the bench or whatever, there are like, you don't know what this team looks like without Ingram, but I think some people would be like, aren't the last year Raptors, the Raptors without Ingram? I don't think they are, but there's some stuff to be said that you do have a pretty injury prone, star player in Brandon Ingram. You have a guy who has routinely missed at least 15, 16, 17 games every year in Scotty Barnes. Last year, Scotty played 65, and at least a third of those games, he was nursing an injury. So not 100% Scotty. That's going to be tough. He's really burning it out on both ends defensively, pushing the pace offensively. So, again, like, you've had great luck. Other teams have had bad luck. How does it balance out towards the end? I think it balances out to about a 47, 48 win team. On the high side, maybe 50. I don't think people need to rush to the conclusion that this team is perfect. It is obviously not perfect. They have a ton of weaknesses. They get killed on the glass routinely. I think bigger teams, which is basically all the good teams in the East, if you've watched the New York Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who we've beat twice, by the way, the Cleveland Cavaliers, shout outs to them, but you haven't beat them with Darius Garland. They're a completely different team with Darius Garland. And then you consider the Detroit Pistons, how big they are, the Miami Heat, physical, large team, as well. They're about to get Tyler Hero back. So we just really don't know who these teams are. And even like the Chicago Bulls are technically pretty big. So, it's kind of hard to imagine, like, why are the Toronto Raptors with 3 guys in the starting lineup who have 7'3" or greater wingspans? Why do they struggle so badly to get rebounds? And the Raptors should probably figure it out. I think it's partially their, transitional lineups that are saving a lot of these games for them. It's not necessarily the bench, because as Samson pointed out in the last Pull Up Trey podcast with Trey Heath, that the Raptors bench is actually bottom 5 in scoring, but one of the top benches in terms of synergy and efficiency metrics and impact metrics. But largely it is because Grady is just supercharging the side of the floor that he's on. He's not necessarily scoring 15 points per game off the bench. And I think the Toronto Raptors, to close this out, to kind of close my thoughts on this, the Toronto Raptors are sort of showing the flaw of hyper individuation of talent. I think too many people get too bogged down in, my guy's better than your guy, Cade is better than Mobley, Şengün is better than Mobley is better than Scotty. It's just like individual, but it's like, how does this guy do something for this other guy? And the Raptors, for the last 3 drafts in a row, between Grady, CMB, Mobo, Chucky Hepburn, all these guys that they've drafted, every single one of them, not one player that they have drafted, in my humble opinion, has superstar upside. So they are not batting on the Cam Whitmores of the world. They're not batting on, the Jalen Greens of the world. They're not batting on individual talents. What they're batting on is safe floors, experience, toughness, and connectivity. Because for whatever reason, they believe that these are the players that they develop. They developed it with Pascal, they developed it with OG, they developed it with Fred, all good connectors in theory. All of those guys were great connectors. And I think the Raptors are proving that connectors win a lot of games. When you get the right ones together, they can win a ton of games. I promise you, if you put Sandro Mamukelashvili right now in the Washington Wizards, he's garbage. If you put Scotty Barnes on the Washington Wizards, they're still really bad. If you put Brandon Ingram on the Washington Wizards, they might be 2 wins better. None of these guys individually can single-handedly lift a team from, 12 wins to 30 wins by themselves. None of these guys have that singular Jokic, Giannis, floor raising ability. What they all are connectors and ceiling raisers. And I believe that that is a very special thing when you put them all together. It's a little bit like, not to tempt fate, a little bit like the Atlanta Hawks under Coach Budenholzer. You had the ISO Joe, you had, Al Horford, you had all those guys together. And together they just played beautiful basketball. Hopefully the Raptors are a little bit like that team. Of course, that team extending from Budenholzer coming from San Antonio. San Antonio, the beautiful game Spurs were also a little bit like that team where the parts were greater than the whole, or the whole was greater than the individual parts. Hopefully, for this to really work, what you really need right now, forget about this season, but going forward, is for Scotty to become that type of player. He's not that player yet, but for him to become that type of player, the type of player who can take over a game, the type of player who could, by himself, lift the Washington Wizards from 12 wins to 40 wins. That type of player. And if you look at the OKC Thunder as an example, the OKC Thunder are full of connectors. Cason Wallace, Lou Dort. If Lou Dort played on the Wizards, you don't care about Lou Dort at all. If Cason Wallace played on the Hornets, you probably don't care about Cason Wallace. I'm going to be honest, you don't. You don't care about these guys. It's when they play in winning contexts that connectors become supercharged and frankly very valuable. Currently, Lou Dort has a million times more value because he plays in a winning context. Isaiah Hartenstein is another great connector. He plays in a winning context. He has value. So when you take all these connectors and you put them into a winning context, that's when you get your OG Anunoby clone. That's when you get your mega impact guys. And quite frankly, that's when you get overpays. Think Cameron Johnson. Think Mikal Bridges. Think Desmond Bane. Connector. These are not individual talents. These are basically pieces like this one. I'll talk to y'all later. Shout outs to Get Paul, new member. Shout outs to you, sir. And also the Milwaukee Bucks are up on the Philadelphia 76ers right now. Paul George is the ultimate bad luck charm. Talk to y'all later. Have a great good night. And please like the video.